Hey guys, I just watched Freddie Mercury in the Live Aid recording. I'm in a great mood. Debian 10 is out. Let's rock. Before we start, I'd like to make an important note. There are two cases where I do not recommend installing Debian. If you just bought a cutting-edge laptop with the latest processor model, it's likely that your hardware will not work properly in Debian. You need to take a look at another Linux distribution, for example Manjaro. The second case is when you're just trying to switch to Linux from Windows or Mac and don't have any prior experience with Linux. Debian is far from being the hardest Linux distro, but it's not the easiest either. I'd recommend getting some months of Linux experience before switching to Debian. A Mac's Linux distribution is very beginner-friendly and can give you some good experience for that. Before starting the installation process, I recommend connecting your computer to the internet using the standard Ethernet cable because it's possible that your Wi-Fi adapter will not be supported during the installation. If you don't have the Ethernet cable and have to use Wi-Fi, I will show how to handle those situations a bit later in this video. Okay, let's move ahead. To install Debian, first you need to download its DVD image that you will be able to burn on a blank DVD disk or write on a USB flash drive. You should visit the official website debian.org. Go to CD USB ISO images, then click on Download CD DVD images using HTTP. Debian is famous for its stability, so in order to enjoy that important feature, we need to download the stable release. On this page, you can see the list of supported architectures. You need to choose the right one. Most modern computers have AMD64 architecture. Finally, we get to the page with the images. Debian is an awesome operating system. It allows to download and store offline all the free open source programs that it supports. So you can install anything you want, even sailing on your yacht in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Debian is a champion on that. It has more than 59,000 packages in its repositories, which occupy more than 60 gigabytes. So if you want to download basically most of the popular free open source programs available on planet Earth, you need to be ready to store 16 DVD images. But it's really not necessary. Luckily, to install Debian you have to download only the first image, which contains the most popular packages and will cover 90% of your needs. Let's save it onto the desktop. The image is 4 gigabytes, so depending on your internet connection, it may take some time. We also need the checksum file, sha256 sums. Put it into the same directory. Okay, I promised to show how to deal with computers without the Ethernet connection. In that case, you need to download the unofficial, non-free Debian installation image. You can find the link in the description. The non-free image can also help you if your computer is not compatible with free open source graphics drivers. So you'll need to download these files. Note that the non-free version has some proprietary code. Its source is closed. It means that we cannot be 100% sure that it doesn't contain malware or backdoors. Use it at your own risk. After the image is downloaded, let's check its integrity. That means we'll make sure that the image is not damaged during the download. On Linux, you should open the terminal, type cd desktop to go to the directory where we put the image and the file with the sums, then run this command. It will take some time. If it says OK, we're good to go. The command for Mac users and the instructions for Windows users I put in the description below. Once we prepared the image, we need to write it on some media to boot up from it. You will need a blank DVD disk or a USB flash drive. There are many programs for burning DVDs. I made a table with a list for different operating systems. If you would like to use a USB flash drive instead of the DVD, you will need a special program to write the image. You cannot just copy the file to the drive. On Windows, you can use Win32 Disk Imager, Universal USB Installer, or Rufus. If you're on Linux or Mac, you can use the dd command in the terminal. If you need instructions on how to do it on Mac, let me know in the comments. I will show you how to do it on Linux. Before you start, run lsblk command to see which devices are currently connected to your machine and locate the flash drive. You can rely on the media size to not mix things up. My thumb drive's label shows 8 gigabytes. Usually manufacturers try to trick users and label drive's capacity in the standard metric definition of the gigabyte, pretending that they don't know that in IT field 1 gigabyte equals 2 to the power of 30 bytes, so the real size of my flash drive is 7.3 gigabytes. By the way, the minimum size for this installation image is 3.8 gigabytes. Once we located it, we need to remember its device letter. Note that with the following procedure, all the content on your flash drive will be erased, so if you have any valuable information in there, copy it beforehand. A word of caution, be sure that you find out the letter of the flash drive correctly before running the following command. If you get the wrong letter or mistype it, it's possible that you will erase the whole content on one of your hard drives. Also, it's necessary to unmount any partitions from the flash drive if you have them mounted. lsblk can show you the current mount point. Right now, this flash drive has an image of the previous version of Debian written on it. That's why the mount point says Debian. I'm going to use the unmount command. Note that I'm using quotation marks because this directory name contains spaces. Okay, we're ready to write the image. Here is the command to do that. You need to replace the letter X with the letter that you found out earlier. Depending on which Debian version you're going to install, correct this name as well. Depending on the speed of your flash drive, this process can take a very long time. When it's done, you'll see the information about how many bytes are written. Before you start the installation, I strongly recommend to back up all your files onto an external hard drive because all the data on the main hard drive will be erased during the installation. Okay, we got the installation media ready. Plug it in and turn off the computer completely. I don't recommend to use hibernation or restart feature. Now we need to boot up the computer using the Debian image from that media. Usually you can choose a device to boot from in the quick boot menu that can be retrieved by pressing F12 key on your keyboard immediately after your computer starts. On some computers it can be F11 or F7. Some motherboards don't have the quick boot menu at all. For those computers you can use boot override option in your BIOS and choose the installation media there. To enter the BIOS configuration mode, keep pressing F2 or delete key on your keyboard when turning on the computer. You can find out which key to use in your laptop or motherboard manual. Some motherboards provide two ways of booting up devices, the regular one and UEFI mode. In that case, make sure that you choose the line that mentions UEFI. If you have problems booting up from the installation media, watch my detailed tutorial on how to do that. I'll put the link in the description below. Additionally, if you have Windows installed on your computer, I recommend to disable secure boot and fast boot features in your BIOS, which I also covered in that video. Note that Debian 10 is the first version that supports secure boot feature, and it's possible to use it without disabling secure boot in the BIOS config. If you did everything correctly, you'll see the Debian installation menu. Make sure the title says UEFI installer. Let's get the party started. Press enter to choose graphical install. If you're using a touchpad on your laptop or some peculiar mouse that requires specific drivers, it's possible that it won't work in the Debian installation program. You can plug in a regular mouse or use the keyboard to navigate through the menus with Tab button, which shifts the focus onto another element of the window. You can see which element is focused by the barely visible surrounding dots. Then you can use spacebar to activate the element or use arrow keys to keep shifting the focus. On some elements, it's also possible to use Enter button to activate it. The first menu allows you to choose the default language that Debian will use for its interface. Next, you should select your location. I'm going to speed up the installation to save your time. At the next step, some of you will see this type of window about non-free firmware. In that case, I have good and bad news for you. The good news is that Debian supports your Wi-Fi adapter. The bad news is that it needs a proprietary closed source driver to make it work. If you have your Ethernet cable plugged in or can get it sometime soon, let's say at your friend's, you can continue installing Debian by choosing No and manually install the proprietary Wi-Fi driver afterwards using that cable. If you don't have the Ethernet connection and you won't be able to get it, you need to abort the installation using this Debian ISO image and download the unofficial non-free one, which has the proprietary Wi-Fi drivers. Let's go back to our installation process. In the next window, you can enter the host name for your computer. For a home network, you can use any name you want. I will leave the default one. The next window asks you for a domain name. If you're not setting up a server, you can leave the field empty. In this window, you can set up a password for root account. If you're not planning to have multiple users with different access rights or set up a server, I recommend you to leave the password empty. That will disable the root account and install sudo program, which is a bit easier to use than su. Also, disabling the root account is good for security. In the next window, you need to specify the main username. You can put your full name in here, spaces are allowed. The next question is about your username. You should use only lowercase letters. Numbers are also allowed. I recommend to make this word reasonably short. In the next window, you have to specify the main password that you will enter every time the system starts, and also every time you use administrative rights with the sudo command. This password is very important for the system security. I recommend to create a complicated password that contains at least one uppercase letter, one lowercase letter, one special character such as the asterisk, and one number. Total length of the password should be at least 12 characters in case you use random combination of those characters. If the sequence contains actual words that can be found in the dictionary or names, then the length should be much higher. The password in that case is called passphrase and should contain at least 6 words, which gives us 26 characters total. If you have problems memorizing good passwords, try searching on the internet for methods on how to create strong but easy to remember passwords. There are some tricks that can really make your life easier. The next step is one of the most important in the whole installation program, so you should be careful. If you're installing Debian for the first time, I recommend to choose guided disk partitioning. If you would like to partition your disk manually, watch my video for experienced users on how to do that. In this window, you have to select on which drive you want to install Debian. I have only one hard drive here, so the default item is already pre-selected. Let's press continue. The next step allows you to choose the partitioning scheme. For beginners, I recommend putting all the files into one partition. Okay, the installation script automatically prepared the hard drive for splitting into partitions. If you want to become an advanced Linux user, it's essential to understand what is going on under the hood. Let me quickly describe what those lines mean. So the first line is our hard drive. Mine is 32 GB, pretty small. Use this size to properly identify hard drives if you have more than one. The installation script suggests that we split the drive into 3 partitions. The first partition is UEFI system partition, or ESP. This partition is absolutely necessary if you're booting your computer using the UEFI mode. We saw that abbreviation in the title of the very first installation menu. Letter B here means that this partition will be bootable. Debian will put the necessary boot files in here. Letter F means that the partition is going to be formatted right after the creation. The partition number 2 is the main system partition. The slash symbol at the end of the line indicates exactly that. Debian will put all the system files in there. User files are also going to be stored on that partition. The third partition is the swap space. The system is going to use it to extend RAM, random access memory. Usually the installation script makes this partition as large as the memory size, so that when you wish to put the system into the hibernation mode, all the memory content could be successfully put onto the hard drive. The free space at the very beginning and at the very end is left because the installation script aligned the partitions exactly to the border of disk's physical tracks, cylinders. On some disks, this is necessary. Okay, the line Finish partitioning and write changes to disk is highlighted, so press continue. The next window gives us the last warning that all the data on the hard drive is going to be erased and asks us if we really want to write the changes to the disk. We should select yes. Do you remember how I told you that you can download all 16 Debian DVDs? If you had additional DVDs, you could insert them one by one right now to scan by the installation program and add the packages that they contain to the database. In the future, if you want to install a certain application, you will just enter its name and Debian will tell you the disk with what number to insert. But you don't need to download all 16 DVDs actually. The packages are written by the popularity order, so the most popular programs are on the first ISOs. We don't have any additional DVDs, so I'm going to keep no selected and press continue. Okay, but what if in the future you will want to install some application that is not very popular and you don't have the DVD that contains it? In that case, you can always use a network mirror. Debian servers always have all the supported packages. Also, a mirror is crucial to update and upgrade your system, getting important security patches. So if your computer is going to be connected to the internet, I recommend to choose yes. Debian servers have mirrors all over the world. You can choose the one that is located closer to you to have better download speed. After you select the closest location, the top choice is usually the best. If you use a proxy server to access the internet, you can specify it in this field. I don't use any, so I will leave it blank. As I told you, the first installation DVD contains the most popular packages. Debian developers gain the information about popularity from the package usage survey. If you choose to participate, the automatic script will run every week on your computer and anonymously send to the Debian developers the information about what packages you have installed. It's remarkable that Debian asks your explicit permission for that and actually has no as the default answer. That shows us that this distribution is very serious about protecting its users' privacy, unlike many other operating systems that send tons of user data to their servers, and often users neither have any idea about that nor can opt out. That's why those systems are called spyware nowadays. It's a shame that even some Linux distros are following the path of the notorious tech giants. Luckily, Debian is not one of them. In the next window, you can select some software collections to install. Those lines are desktop environments. Normally, you would want to select only one of those. That decision is very important because it will directly affect your system look and performance. In my video about running Linux on slow computers, I compared resource consumption of Xfce, LXDE, and Mate. Some Linux users passionately insist that their favorite desktop environment is the best. Each environment has its pros and cons. I recommend to install Xfce desktop environment. It's very fast, stable, and can be configured to look awesome. I strongly do not recommend installing GNOME for many reasons. I should create a separate video about that. If you're not going to use any printers, you can uncheck Print Server. If you want to be able to remotely connect to this computer from another machine, check SSH Server. Now the installation script is going to install all the packages that you chose, and if the computer is connected to the internet, update the system as well. Depending on your computer performance and the internet speed, this process can take a long time. I'm going to fast forward this. Okay, the installation is finished. You need to remove the installation media and press continue. That will reboot the computer. After the computer restarts, you should see the Debian boot menu. You can press enter or wait for seconds for the system to start. At this point, I recommend to follow the boot report with your eyes and make sure that you see only green-colored word OK in the left part of the screen. If you'll see a red-colored fail, obviously something went wrong. Yay! We got the login screen. We are the champions, if you know what I mean. If you went through the Debian boot menu but don't see this login screen, it's likely that your graphics card is not compatible with the free open source drivers. So I would recommend to download the non-free Debian image and reinstall Debian using that ISO, which includes proprietary drivers. Enter your username and password. If you chose to install Xfce desktop environment, you'll see this dialog box. I recommend to choose Use Default Config. After that, you should see your desktop. If your screen resolution is low, it's likely that you have to install graphics drivers. Check out my videos for NVIDIA and AMD cards on how to properly do that. If you use the USB flash drive to install the system and you would like to reformat it to store, let's say, your personal files, you should let the system know that you don't have the installation media anymore, because as soon as you decide to install some package and the system detects that it's popular and located on the first DVD, it will ask you to insert that media. To avoid that confusion, let's edit the sources file manually. Open the terminal and use this command. Type in your password. What we need to do is to put a number sign in front of the line that starts with deb cd-rom. You can use the arrow keys to move the cursor. Let's put the space after the sign as well. Now save the file by pressing Ctrl and O on your keyboard, then Enter, and exit by pressing Ctrl and X. We should let the system know that we changed the file by running the update command. I'm going to make a video about how to transform the standard Xfce look into this very soon, so check out my channel if you like it. All the commands that I mentioned in this video you can find in the description below. If you like this video, please subscribe and share. That will help me out a lot. The survival of this channel depends on you. If you want to drive me crazy, give me $1 on my Patreon page. See you later!